Partner Solutions Advisor for Microsoft Corporation. And today we're going to talk about Microsoft SQL Server 2008 and database mirroring. Now, database mirroring is a technology for increasing database availability. Database mirroring transfers transaction log records from one server to another. This is going to allow us a quick failover to the standby server. In the event of a failover, client applications can automatically redirect their connection to the standby server. Fast failover with minimal data loss has traditionally involved higher hardware cost and greater software complexity. However, database mirroring can fail over quickly with no loss of committed data. In addition, database mirroring does not require proprietary hardware and it's easy to set up and manage. So let's take a look. Database availability is critical, especially for high-volume customer-facing applications like e-commerce sites. With SQL Server 2008, it does provide a number of methods to achieve and maintain high availability in different situations. These include failover clustering, database mirroring, and replication. In today's screencast, we're actually going to take a look at how to set up and configure and do some testing with database mirroring. So let me go ahead and launch the SQL Server Management Studio. And as the Management Studio comes up, I'm going to connect to a couple databases. So first, let's connect to what I'm going to call the primary, which is SQL 08 demo. And then I'm going to go back to my Object Explorer, click Connect, and we want to go out and let's go ahead and connect to the mirrored instance. So this is a second instance on my virtual machine to do the demos. In a real life scenario, we would probably have this on a separate physical box. But to make the demo easy, we actually have different instances of SQL Server 2008 loaded in my virtual machine. So again, typically we're going to set this up to go to a different physical box because that's one of the things that we're trying to protect against. Now with database mirroring, it's very similar to the concept of disk mirroring, where we're going to write information to both instances of SQL Server, similar to disk mirroring, where we're going to write the disk information to separate hard drives. And so with database mirroring, the primary database and a secondary mirror are kept synchronized. And you can actually set it up a couple different ways. We're going to take a look at that as we look at synchronous and asynchronous and the high availability. Now, if we do configure automatic failover, then if the primary database fails for any reason, then the mirror is going to take over the duties of the primary, and our users are going to experience little or no disruption. Now, if we choose to set it up without automatic failover, then we as the administrators are going to have to go in and actually do some type of manual crossover to the mirrored instance of SQL Server 2008. Now, there are a couple different ways we can enable mirroring with scripts, which is what we're going to do in just a moment. But before we do that, let's go in and actually see where within the Management Studio that we can actually do the configuration for the database. So let me go and just select AdventureWorks, DW. I'm going to right click and select the properties. As I select the properties, one of the options, you can see there down towards the bottom, is indeed mirroring. Now, as we look at mirroring, we do have the ability that we could actually walk through as we click Configure Security, and it would actually walk us through setting up the different endpoints for the mirroring. But what I want to show you here is this is where we have the operating mode. Now, it is grayed out because we haven't set anything up yet, but I can just kind of read to you what our three options are. So the first one is high performance, and this is in an asynchronous model. The changes are committed to the principal and then transferred to the mirror. So we're going to get better performance because we're not going to wait to find out if it was indeed written to the mirror. We do have a little bit of a chance for a loss of data, but we do have high performance. And again, it's following the concept of asynchronous communication. The second one is high safety without automatic failover, and that is synchronous. So we're always going to commit the changes at both the principal and mirror. And the application is going to wait until it has that commit happening in both instances of SQL Server 2008. Now with high performance, asynchronous, and high safety without automatic failover or synchronous, both of those operating modes are the manual switchover. You are going to have to come in and actually make that change. Now the bottom one down here is the high safety with automatic failover. And again, it is very similar to, always committing changes, the synchronous without automatic failover. The difference is it actually requires a third instance of SQL Server 2008. And this third instance is called the witness. And the witness is actually what's there to help make sure that there is a communication between the primary and the mirror. And so it's kind of there to, kind of eliminate that question of, is the primary down? So it's watching what happens when the primary database fails. After a brief delay, the witness tries to communicate, it can't see it, and it gives the go-ahead for the mirror to promote itself and take over as the primary. It's what I would consider the final arbitrator in the case of a failure, and confirms the need for a failover operation. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of the properties, and we're actually going to do it through a script. So I'm going to go open up a project solution. And we're going to run a couple different scripts to create our endpoint. So let me bring my window over here just a little bit so we can actually see the script. And I'll narrow down my Solution Explorer as well. So let me open up, setting up first the primary endpoint. So we can see that we're going to set up a primary endpoint on our database. So let's go ahead and execute our script. And then the second one is to set up the mirrored endpoint. So again, very similar, but we're setting it up on the mirrored instance. So the SQL 08 demo mirror. And then we are going to do a high availability. So let's go ahead and configure our witness. So at this point, I've created the 3 endpoints, and I've actually had to put them on 3 different listening ports because I'm on the same box. So we're going to see that as, I believe it's 5022, 5023, and 5024. But we'll take a look at that in just a moment when we go back into the properties of the AdventureWorks database. So the next thing is to actually set up the partner for the mirror. And then we'll set up the primary partner, as well as establishing our witness. So at this point, we've run some different scripts. I will make those available out on my blog. So if you, when we get to the end of the screencast, you will have a link to my blog. So I will provide those scripts for you out as a blog entry. So let me go ahead and close down the scripts. Let me pull this back out. First, let's go and do a refresh of our primary. And we can see that we've been working with AdventureWorks within the scripts. So we can see that it is principal and synchronized. Now let's go down here and see what we have with the demo mirror. And again, you can see that it is indeed been tagged as a mirror, and it is in a synchronizing state. So while that's doing the initial synchronization, let's go ahead and right-click and select the properties and go in back to that exact same tab of mirroring. And now it should be populated with the information about the principal, the mirror, and the witness. So we can see again, the principal is on the instance of 08 demo, and it's doing 5022, and then we've got the mirror and the witness. And notice also that we have our operation mode, and we have it set for high safety with automatic failover, synchronous. Again, it does require the server instance. We do have the server instance there. And we can see here that it is actually synchronizing right now. We'll go ahead and do a refresh. And we see that it's still synchronizing. So we'll give it just a moment to finish the synchronization. And then we're going to go in and actually demonstrate database mirroring, because we're going to bring up a sample application that's going to actually create some failover and the ability to watch the other database take over. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and we'll give it just a moment to finish that synchronization. So at this point, we have completed the synchronization, so we can actually see that the AdventureWorks does say principal synchronized, and then down here on the mirrored instance, we can see that the mirror is synchronized. So we are synchronized and ready to go. I can also verify this by, again, going into the properties, going into mirroring, and we can see synchronized. The databases are fully synchronized. Okay, so let's go ahead and minimize our Management Studio. And I'm going to bring up an application that will actually do some simulation with our primary and mirroring instances. So let me pull this up just a little bit. And so as we run this application, we're going to simulate a situation where the primary database is working under peak load. During this time, the traffic between the primary database and the mirrored increases as data is transferred to keep them synchronized. Queries are going to be executed on the primary database. So let me go ahead and click Begin Test. And so there we're starting to execute out, and we are hitting into the primary database. So what I'm going to do now is actually cause a failure. So I'm going to fail the primary instance. And then in just a couple of seconds, and we see, and I didn't pause or anything, that was real time, folks. I didn't pause the recording, that is real time. We can see that it switched over to the mirror. So we went from the primary to the mirror. And so the mirror has actually taken over. Now, it did have a brief delay, and that's where the mirror was going to pick up the transaction that the primary was handling. Typically, it's going to happen within a matter of seconds. We had the witness instant configured earlier. It was able to detect the failure in the primary database server and switch the active server to the mirror. So let me go ahead and click End Test. And we can go back into the Management Studio. And let's just kind of look at a couple of things. We can see that this instance is offline. So we are off. So we can see that the primary is now off. So let's go ahead and look down here at the demo mirror, and I've done a refresh, and notice that as I've done the refresh, that it has been promoted from mirror to principal, but also it is showing that it is disconnected. So let's go ahead and see if we can just restart. So I'm just going to tell it to start the SQL 08 demo. And then I do need to restart the agent. And then let's see what happens. Notice that at this point, we have restarted the SQL 08 demo, and we are in a reconnection, so disconnected, and it's in recovery mode. But notice it has swapped roles. The former principal is now mirror, and the for mirror is now principal. So we are in a recovery mode. So we'll give it just a few moments to recover. So I gave it just about a minute, and now we can actually go see as we go into the properties. We also see it there in the parentheses that we have resynchronized. So we are now fully synchronized and ready to go. Well, that wraps up this screencast as we took a look at SQL Server 2008 and database mirroring. To summarize, using SQL Server 2008 database mirroring, you can help ensure that in the case of a database failure, customers can continue to use database applications without interruption. Here are a couple of links for more information. Thank you for joining and have a great day.